I will add a few comments pretty much about facilitating collaboration. The lowest hanging fruits are the obvious ones most of us do in the academic world. Invite industry speakers as guest speakers. And they love to come, first of all. It's absolutely incredible that the CEO of a good company likes to claim that I was at the XY Institute giving one lecture. It's interestingly. So you already got them. And when you come them, if you excite them in the discussions in the classroom, and there are many, many good business schools that do very, very well. To me, it's the lowest hanging fruit pretty much. Executive education is the second one. In fact, my own personal journey began with, of all things, a 2-day seminar I used to do on multivariate statistics. I did it out of sheer necessity. Quite often entrepreneurship is not as much by passion as it is by necessity. I had to earn a second income to have the growing family, and I decided to do my own 2-day workshop on multivariate statistics. Paul Green, I hired him actually half a day because I did not like cluster analysis, nor did I like, in fact, conjoint analysis. And of course, you can't teach without passion. So he would do half a day or 2 days as a subcontract, and we became lifelong buddies, and we must have gone to 20 countries doing probably 100 seminars. Very interestingly. That led me into the telephone company of all people. And they said, can you do this workshop in the company, which led to a very large scale engagement with the industry, which I'll talk about in a moment. So executive education is a very, very important platform. And when you look at that executive education, the key element in success seems to be thought leadership. Executives love to be led by ideas. Okay? In one-on-one meetings, you plant a given perspective, another way of looking at it, and they had never thought about it. You have a framework of some sort, like the rule of 3 that I have in competition, and suddenly they say, my God, it's like aha for me, and you got them. It's better than a consultant's. As academics, we have more credibility walking into the CEO office than a typical consultant has the credibility, because no consultant has an agenda to sell something, you see. Or an investment banker has an agenda, whereas we are going by saying, here is an idea we are giving you. It's a very good way to engage the industry. These are very low-hanging fruits. The other one that we did in a more innovative way at Illinois, I think before Russ Belk came there in the 70s, as a young faculty member, I was of a strong belief that faculty in those days who had no work experience, great scholars, should be doing their internship in a company. So we do offer a 9-month contract plus 2 months for summer research. So that 2 months is not research in the university, but being placed into a company, including Amoco in Chicago, for example. So in Illinois, we had quite a few companies where faculty learned what the real world is all about by being at the place where the company operates rather than the company coming to you. And that has worked very, very well. People who went through those programs have simply said those 2 months being in the company location, understanding them, transformed completely. As you know, young graduates, when they join, they go on a field exercise. That has been very true. The more interesting ones are the following. The first one is, if there is an emerging phenomenon like emerging markets, just create a forum. Because it's a hot new area, everybody will show up. All you need is marginal income or marginal revenue rather than a serious money. World Economic Forum began like that, which has become so large and huge. Naresh Malhotra has started a consortium on emerging markets, which is going to grow in a grassroots way. And I have done that similar forums like relationship marketing, which was a rising thing. And suddenly we got huge collaboration with conference board. And we even had a Malcolm Baldrige type awards given to the companies where company begs to be giving all the data to be analyzed. And we had a jury who will select like a Malcolm Baldrige Award, who is best in relationship marketing. So to me, these are pretty easier way to do it pretty much. So I think creating some sort of a forum as a way of linking or facilitating the dialogue between industry and academic is very possible. At Emory University, under the leadership of Tom Robertson, before he was hired as a dean, I had a very strong view that our executive education and the doctoral program must link. So the new wing that we built, we have housed doctoral students because my doctoral students, when I would do executive programs, I wanted them to meet the industry people, just like Piyush said, it's a one-on-one relationship. If the manager is comfortable with your student, he immediately says, welcome. So a great student of mine, Tasu Sharwani, who has become very much a consultant, brilliant mind. He got access to 3M company, he got access to Xerox, he got access to IBM just from that. Okay? It's very simple. So doctoral students should be engaging in the executive programs, not as teachers, but just as observers, just meeting, dialoguing with them, because they need to establish a one-on-one relationship as opposed to us being the rainmaker for them in some fashion, because ultimately they are the ones who have to work with the industry people. That seems to work pretty well. There are three things I will talk about which are somewhat different. Our first major initiative was what is called the Columbia Buyer Behavior Project. John Howard and I decided to leave Pittsburgh and go to Columbia University, and very quickly on Howard-Sheth theory, we got $500,000 money. One was just a sheer luck. Chauncey Williams was the founder of Sweets Catalog, just like Thomas Registry, you know. And he died, and in his will, nobody knew, he gave about $350,000 or some ungodly number in the 60s to Columbia Business School. The dean gave it to John Howard. John was a very good academic entrepreneur. So we leveraged General Electric relationships on a one-on-one again with people like Nelson Foote, who was a key research director. We leveraged with Monsanto. And we got $500,000, and we appointed George Day, who you remember as a world-class scholar at Wharton, was our doctoral student, and George is a great manager. And we had Paul Lazarsfeld, who was a sociologist on new product introductions, diffusion of innovation, etc. He was our advisor, pretty much. Very large project, which probably had 11, 12 doctoral students. So Don Lehman, John Farley, John was more senior we hired, Don was a young one. They all joined into a large, focused research strictly to test Howard-Sheth theory, and published I don't know how many monographs, etc. Very similar to what Peter talked about as a sort of initiative within the discipline, within the School of Business essentially. And it was a great success for almost, I would say, 1 decade or so. My own experience in this regard has been in the telephone industry. Teaching these multivariate seminars, I got into it. I had done a lot of longitudinal panel work before. And lo and behold, again, a golden opportunity comes within the telephone company for regulatory reasons. They were tracking from long distance billing records, you know how much you bill to the clients, a database of 30,000 business customers, 30,000 residential customers, 60,000 panel, absolutely scientifically designed because you have to be reporting to a commission, which is a public thing. So it's like a disclosure, very important one, a very legalistic thing. So they had to do scientifically right. And you had this gold mine of information which they did not know how to mine. Internal budget alone was $11 million annually. We are talking about in the 70s to early 80s, all within the Bell system pretty much, right? And I did a lot of research, and I have publications in Journal of Marketing, Journal of Applied Psychology, for example. So it's very possible to get publications from these kinds of entities. And when the Bell system broke loose and broke it apart, I started a center which is still there at USC. I did all the fundraising. But I said again, like Peter mentioned in your experience, if you are going to ask money, don't ask for little money. First of all, begging is an art. Most administrators don't know how to beg properly. It's a gift. They ask too crudely sometimes. It's a very subtle phenomenon. Only the NGOs, good people, know how to beg right. It's very interestingly. So you have to learn how to beg right. I've seen deans absolutely not able to beg because it's like they can't. We bring them all the way to a good donor and they can't ask that right question. Very interestingly. So you have to learn the art of begging right. And I immediately said, all right, I would like to have 20 minimum customers in my center, $100,000 a year for 3-year commitment. And I said, I need not only your money, but your time. My board meetings are as non-negotiable as yours. You have to show up to those meetings. Isn't that interesting? If you show that you can, well, they have to report to you. Are you with me? There's an asymmetry of power. When we go into the CEO office, we are serving them. They got you. You're going to sell your soul. Okay? What you have to do is to say, I want to lead you, interestingly. So I lined up all the baby bells. My starting budget alone, after initial capital that I put my own capital because business school was at USC, I raised $3 million up front, all prepaid services. Never go for future revenues from the company sponsors, get it up front. $3 million, 20% university tax, so the dean is very happy. He's doing nothing, basically, 20% of the revenue. And then I had all the overheads. I had a large staff of people, and we did all kinds of innovative programs, both research, roundtables, etc., something that's appropriate, publishable, etc. And by the way, that center now at USC has just finished 27 years, and it is made into a university-wide institute with about $10 to $12 million investment by the university. Telephone companies are legacy, remember, like legacy computer systems. And all of a sudden now, the excitement is the digital media. So they have been able to now go into the digital media and are doing exciting things. David knows quite a lot. I got Dave engaged into the center. I got a lot of my faculty colleagues to say, please help me run this center. He's run very, very well for a while, and he's still continuing over there. So it's very possible to do institution building, and sometimes you have to do it out of necessity. I would add a couple of more points here. And I think as Russ Belk has done at York University, if you have a focused academic program, at Illinois, we decided we will focus on consumer behavior. Attracted all the young scholars, Peter Wright, Russ Belk, just going on, quite a few. And we decided to align with our psychology department, which was relatively well known, and created the focus around that one. And with that focus, what happens is quite often people show up to what you are doing. So we got very large databases from Market Research Corporation of America, which was the largest household panel of 12,000 households data, all on mag tapes. Remember magnetic tapes? And I've had several doctoral dissertations, all published. So this notion that industry does not allow you to publish, I think is partly a myth. I don't think it's the case. And these data are available. Right now, if you wanted, Roper International does probably the best lifestyle research on a worldwide basis for clients like Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola. They're begging the data to be housed someplace to be mined. If you're into consumer behavior on a cross-cultural basis, you have access to the data. Okay? So it's very possible to do that thing. I'll make last comment, namely that I don't like to work with the chief marketing officers. It's interesting. I don't like them. First of all, they think they know a lot more than they do. And the stakeholding around that individual is so high, you have the ad agency guys competing for their attention. And by the way, the most outsourced function in a business, I have the data to show actually, I don't publish as much in academic world for my own reasons. Very interestingly, is not IT services or HR function, payroll, etc. 75 to 80% of all the budget spent by a company is all outsourced to outside people. And by the way, we never teach a marketing class on vendor management. Keep that in the back of your mind, okay? Isn't that interesting? And so it's fascinating. Most outsourced function in a company is a marketing function. That's very fascinating. So everybody's competing for that person's attention. He has the budget, he doesn't have the capabilities. It's all outsourced. It's very fascinating. So what I find more exciting to work is R&D organizations. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I worked with Bell Labs for, I don't know how many, 12, 14 years. Those are top scientists. Their whole mission is publication, publication, publication. And they want to make sure that they publish in top journals just after the patents are given, okay? So their agenda is the same your agenda, okay? And they're all PhDs, first of all. And I worked at Bell Labs quite a lot. I worked at General Mills on the kitchen side, as we call it, not the marketing guys. Pillsbury on the kitchen side. Those guys are more user-oriented, whereas marketing guys are more buyer-oriented. Who's going to buy my product, not my product, how it will be used. So if you want to get ultimate user aspects in a marketing sense, not the buyer, which is what we do in trading kind of a notion, it's very interesting to work with R&D guys. And by the way, they have the money. Fascinating. I worked at General Motors and Tech Center. The head of that guy was an ex-Purdue University chancellor. About a dozen of the outside consultants were all Nobel Prize winners. We were into a futuristic group, and we have done projects which are absolutely mind-boggling futuristic things. It's very sophisticated. And all of the people at PhDs from anthropology, experimental psychology, econometrics, for example. It's a truly interdisciplinary group that is created to generate next generation of knowledge on public transit like buses, for example. We have done studies in the Live in Cincinnati, carpooling, for example, in California. We are talking about real world studies because they have the money, and publication was very easy to do. So it's very interesting to watch. We are published mostly in transportation research, journals pretty much in that area. I think it's very interesting to work with them, R&D guys. Another entity I find more interesting to work are the policy people. Business depends so much on what happens policy-wise. Industries are created and industries are destroyed by the policy changes. And the policy guys are not housed in the marketing department. Now in India, we do have a CSR mandated, remember? There's a law being passed. Enormous amount of money will be poured in, and nobody knows how to do that well. It's not a part of the marketing budget. So policy has been a very interesting area, and there we are now heading up the journal, which is very fascinating. I think we have not really studied in marketing the impact of policy or change in regulation, legislation, etc., which is fascinating. And one of the most fascinating area, I worked along with, surprisingly, Oliver Williams in economics, who got the Nobel Prize, the transaction cost economics, two independently about the breakup of the Bell system. I was opposed to the way it was supposed to be broken, government mandated. My view was that Western electric manufacturing ought to be divested as a price. Don't break up the local exchange, what's called the baby bells now, long distance will collapse. And it did happen. On the other side was Oliver Williams. He was working for the state of California because he was an economist working on the public side, not on the industry side. I mean, I tell you, another Nobel Prize, Stiglitz, remember? Joseph Stiglitz. He was a Bell Labs guy. Great academic, but at the same time very practical. You work with those people and you have the same symbiotic relationship. You are both on the same mission. So I find that working with the policy people, working with R&D is more exciting. Marketing guys often have a very narrow view. I mean, if you talk to CPG guys, all they know is branding, nothing else. It took a strong leader like Ed Arts at Procter & Gamble. We worked for, 11, 12 years at Emory University, where a CEO basically was saying brand management system is obsolete. Because P&G, a world-class marketing company, did not know who was their customer. Think about that. Walmart was the customer, and Walmart CEO called up founder, because each product division has their own terms and conditions, the legal contracts. Each product division has their own P&L responsibility, logistical systems, and you have a nightmare as a large retailer to receive them. So we went through a whole journey of creating on the other side a P&L responsibility virtual, like a matrix, where account management and a Procter & Gamble Walmart relationship, which began about $500 million over 2 decades almost, is now what do you know? It's about $14 billion roughly. And that process nobody can duplicate. So our students worked on that one, everything publishable. So it's that kind of a thing you have to aspire, first of all. My view is that I think this is something where we ourselves don't aspire, stretch ourselves to a next level of imagination. If you do that thing, the linking with industry. Industry actually loves to have great academics give sort of new ahas to them. And we can do it in marketing as they do it in science or in engineering. Those are my observations and experiences. And I'm still doing it. My latest one is in the policy side, in the geopolitics, where I do more work than marketing, and some of the people So my view is that the new trilateral relationship between China, India, and America will be totally transforming the world, politics and economics. So I have an institute called India, China, America Institute. We wanted to call it China, India, America Institute, but then it's CIA Institute, which is the brand name we didn't want. I didn't want America in the front. And I tell you, the most strategic city is Singapore. Fascinating, right? So this is another initiative. Nobody in political scene ever saw the trilateral relationship. Everybody thinks about bilateral, very interestingly. So you plant an idea like that, suddenly becomes a huge opportunity for collaborating with industry. So many things are possible. We'll talk about offline. Today we have had too much of dumping knowledge. We need to have more interaction. Thank you very much.